Hey, welcome everybody in yet another jam session for the Functional Programming 101 X course. And in this one, we're going to do a quick run over Facebook's extensions to PHP called Hack. And Hack really is one way to look at it is it's PHP with optional typing, just like in Dart. And then there's some quite interesting additional features that we have seen in C# and in Dart as well, such as asynchronous functions and iterators. And then the additions that Hack brings to PHP are optional static typing. So you, here you can kind of specify the types, and the other thing is lambda expressions, and we will walk through some examples there as well. And the examples will all be taken here from the Hack website, and I invite you to kind of have a look at it and install Hack on your computer if you're a PHP programmer. I think this is definitely a step up. So let's look at first at the way you use anonymous functions in PHP. So in PHP, and maybe I can make this a little bit larger to make it better readable. So in PHP, like in C++, C++ has lambdas as well. When you capture variables from the outer scope, you have to explicitly use them. For example, here, there's a variable $x here. In PHP, variables are always have like this $sign in front. So we have a variable $x that's initialized to bar. And here's an anonymous function that we return. The syntax is similar to JavaScript, where you have to write function, parameters, curly open, body, return. So that's already rather verbose. But the thing here is that you always have to say which variables from the outer scope you're using. And so when you want to write code in a higher order style using filter and map, those kind of functions that we have seen in the Haskell course, the syntax here becomes very, very heavyweight. And there's more noise than really what you gain. One of the very nice things in Hack is that Hack supports lambda expressions, which makes the use of anonymous functions in PHP much, much more concise. So let's look at the example here. So here we have a function that captures B from the outer scope. So that's used B here. But we don't have to say any use here. And also, the syntax is much more concise. So we can just say $A, that's the parameter, arrow, and then triple arrow. And the website here gives a very interesting explanation of why that syntax was used, not single arrow and not single double arrow. But here you see that we don't have to write all this noise. We don't have to write functions. We don't have to write use. And now suddenly writing higher order functions like map, filter, fold becomes rather easy. And so that's a quite nice thing. Good. So let's look at some other features of Hack that we have seen in Haskell. Type aliases. We have seen type aliases also in Scala. In Haskell, if you want to give a different name to some type, you just define a type alias. And in Hack, you can do that here. And there are also new type, that's the same concept as in Haskell, and so on. So Hack has a number of ways to define type aliases. There, you see here, there's OCaml is mentioned. Interestingly, the hack compiler itself is written in OCaml. So that's an example of a very large piece of software written in a functional language that is used at you know, a major internet company. And also many of the ideas in hack have been influenced by the OCaml language. So there you see another example where a functional language, OCaml, is both used in the implementation of this PHP derivative, but also the design of hack has been influenced by a functional language by OCaml. That's very nice. We have seen lambda expressions. Here are generators in C#. There's yield return. We've seen those in Dart as well with the sync star methods. JavaScript, ECMAScript 6 will also support yield. And PHP already support generators here. So you can write inside the function body, you can use yield, and then the result of this will be an iterable. And the nice thing about this is that if you use these iterators, and I haven't shown them in C#. In C# I've shown only the link comprehensions. But with iterators, it's kind of the imperative equivalent of comprehensions. Because sometimes you want to generate a collection, but you want to maintain some state. And you want to use regular control flow, like try catch and for loops and while loops. And in that case, the iterators, or generators as they're sometimes called, are super convenient because it just allows you to write the same kind of code that you write in normal function bodies, but now you can temporarily suspend the function body when you want to yield a value, and then when the consumer calls move next, execution continues here. The other thing that is in hack that is quite nice, and that's also in C# and as we've seen also in Dart, are asynchronous functions. So if you define a function and you say that it's asynchronous, then inside that function you can call await on another asynchronous function, and this asynchronous function returns an awaitable of some value, and an awaitable, say, roughly is what corresponds to a task in C#, or a future in Java, or a future in Dart. And so this await takes on the right-hand side a awaitable of t, and then turns that into a t. And under the covers, the compiler will create a state machine that will take the continuation of this program here, so the rest of the computation, that's basically what's highlighted here, and pass that as the callback when that awaitable has terminated. I think that's about it for hack. So if you go to the hack website, it has fantastic documentation. There's a lot of samples, tutorials, and there's also instructions how to install it on your own computer. So if you are a PHP programmer and you're interested in using a much more functional programming style, I would definitely advise you to give hack a try. And as I mentioned, hack compiler is written in OCaml, and so the influences of functional programming here are very apparent, which is always beautiful. So thank you very much, and happy hacking.